Madam Acting Deputy President. I rise to speak today on the latest example of the extreme right dictating the agenda of the Turnbull government. Not only is the government trying to impose its harebrained plebiscite on the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex and queer community, but now we've got to put up with the he said, she said game about whether the government is going to spend millions of taxpayers' dollars to advertise these well-worn arguments. Senator Back, in his contribution, made no mention of the harm that by spending not only the harm of the plebiscite, but then adding to the harm of spending millions of dollars to amplify the hatred, the hate speech, the homophobic hate speech that will come from this plebiscite. Many in favour of the plebiscite tell us, Minister, no, this won't be the case, that the plebiscite will be okay. Don't automatically assume the worst. And let me tell you, we don't automatically assume the worst, but we've seen the worst. And sadly, the strong anti-discrimination laws that Senator Back talked of won't protect us and won't protect particularly young LGBTIQ people struggling with their sexuality and their gender identity. It won't protect us from the worst of that hate speech and the homophobia. Politicians are often the target of social media trolls, and late last week I was. And I want to share this experience with you to give you an example of what we can expect, what will be amplified, what will be broadcast through the megaphone if this plebiscite goes ahead. Late last week, a person called Jeff contacted me, and Jeff is a troll. I ask you all to not be like Jeff. Jeff said to me, "How dare you stupid, ugly, anti-corrupt, ultra-corrupt scum." He accused marriage equality advocates of advocating the creation of a whole new stolen generation. He prefaced a sentence with, "As much as I hate being rude to a woman," and then launched into some of the most appalling misogynist language imaginable, and finished up threateningly by saying, "You and your kind will not be allowed nor tolerated to brainwash our kids and sexually groom them. We will never forget. Be sure about it." Jeff, who is friends on Facebook with the Australian Christian Lobby's Lyle Shelton, is not representative of all who oppose marriage equality, but his contribution to social discourse is not isolated either. I've got a growing collection of hateful correspondence to my office. Now, on this occasion, Jeff needed to be called out. It would have been very easy to just delete his comments, but he needed to be called out not only because what he was saying was wrong, but because the community needs to know the sort of comments that will be given a megaphone in a plebiscite. So I told Jeff about the many same-sex couples and their children who are wonderful parents with loved, loving and well-adjusted kids, and the response was overwhelming. And today I want to share just a few of their comments with you. Liz said that so many same-sex couples have children, and while these attitudes make me angry, I worry about the hurt they will cause any of my future kids. Another person, Rial, said, "Gay couples are not asking anything but equal rights. No idea what he is talking about. My children grew up with 3 parents, their mother and me when they were between their birth and preschool, and then they came living with me and my gay partner, as their mother was unable at the time to have them. We love our children, and they always have frequent contact with their mother. There was never a conflict or disagreement, and my children have grown up into balanced and happy adults. All I am saying is that when love guides your hearts and actions, there is no problem." Sarah told me, or asked, what about the millions of children who have lost one or both natural parents? Sure, makes them feel great to be told they should have natural parents. And Matthew said, "This is the perfect example of why a plebiscite might be civil in the Prime Minister's eyes and in the Parliament, where people's jobs hinge on their choice of words, but in the eye of any lesbian, gay, bi or trans person or their families, on the level of the talk on the street and social media, it will be anything but. So don't be like Jeff, but also don't encourage Jeff. Encouraging Jeff and the others like him is exactly what a plebiscite would do. And even worse would be to give the people opposed to marriage equality $10 million on top of the $160 million plus that we've already been spending to amplify their attacks. I mean, politicians, we're used to it. Some would even say we're paid to cop it, but the others don't need this, and a plebiscite would give a megaphone to the haters. And it would tell us what we already know, that the vast majority of Australians are ready for marriage equality, way past ready. Parliament should protect the rights of minorities, not subject them to a harmful, hateful, non-binding poll. I mean, why would you want to set such a dangerous precedent? And the real reason is a sad reflection on this current government. We have a Prime Minister without the courage to stand up to a backbench that is stuck in the past. The plebiscite was a brainwave of the former Prime Minister Tony Abbott to delay the inevitable and to keep us behind the rest of the world. Some of the most conservative countries in the world have already legalised marriage equality, and quite frankly, it's embarrassing how far we've fallen behind. Australia should not risk being on the wrong side of history when marriage equality becomes the standard across the world. So what is the way forward? It is easy. We can enrich the lives of so many Australians through a simple vote in the Parliament. In fact, we could do it this week. We could hear wedding bells ringing before Christmas. I mean, there are a lot of bills floating around Parliament at the moment, but the reality is it's going to take cooperation from all of us to make it happen. And so it was pleasing to hear the contribution from Senator Pratt of the Labor Party's opposition to a plebiscite, and I urge the Labor Party to completely shut the door, to make the announcement to say that they will join the Greens, join some on the crossbench, to be blocking this plebiscite legislation when it comes to us in the Senate, because it is so damaging and unnecessary. And to the Liberals who will listen, I ask them to put their internal disputes aside and to vote with their heart. And I ask Prime Minister Turnbull to allow that to occur, because we could end this so quickly. I ask everyone in this chamber and in the other place to listen to the views of lesbian, gay, bi, trans, intersex and queer Australians, to consider the survey that was done by the parents and friends of lesbian and gay people that surveyed 5,500 LGBTIQ Australians, and overwhelmingly they said they wanted marriage equality, absolutely, they wanted it as soon as possible, but they did not want to achieve it through a damaging, divisive popular vote. I think we do need to come together. We can come together. We can bring together the best of us. We can be listening to the views of people who are hurting at the moment, people who don't have the rights of other Australians, people who are suffering because of this largest state-sanctioned discrimination that is being imposed upon LGBTIQ people. We can listen to them, and people can then vote with their heart, and that we can move forward. We could have a vote in this Parliament next week. Then this discrimination would end. Then Australia would catch up with the rest of the world. But instead, we are stuck in this debate about having a plebiscite that we know will cause harm, that we know will cause suffering, that we know is not the precedent we should be setting on the human rights of people. We are talking about subjecting the human rights of a minority of LGBT people to a popular vote. There are no other minorities that we're saying that this should happen to. And the rest of us, we don't have to ask the rest of the country as to whether we could get married. The rest of us is just accepted. It's how it should be for LGBTIQ people as well, so that together we can be supporting and embracing their rights and really coming together because we know that love is love. We know that they deserve to be able to get married and celebrate their love with the rest of us. So let's work together and put it into law.
Thank you, Senator Rice. Your time has expired. Senator McAllister.